Well, as we've been hearing, this morning RTE and other media organisations will appear in the High Court seeking clearance to report statements made last week in the Dáil by the independent TD for Kildare North, Catherine Murphy, concerning Denis O'Brien's banking arrangements with the IBRC, formerly Anglo-Irish Bank and Irish Nationwide. Mr O'Brien, who secured an injunction against RTE, writes in today's Irish Times that files were taken from the IBRC and that they were tampered with and leaked. Deputy Murphy has said, for her part, repeatedly that she is satisfied that the documents she cited are robust. Joining me now to look at the legal and political implications of all of this are the Adjunct Professor of Law at Trinity, Eoin O'Dell, and independent Wicklow TD, Stephen Donnelly. First of all, to you, Stephen Donnelly, what is your view of the situation where RT and other media, with the exception, I think, of the Sunday Times and one website, have been reticent about reporting Catherine Murphy's statement?
Well, it's a very serious situation, Sean. If we abstract it from the specifics, because actually I don't believe Denis O'Brien is the issue here at all. The issue is KPMG, the conflict of interest in them investigating themselves, and Michael Noonan not providing Parliament with concerns raised by his officials. But at a principle level, there is absolute privilege, obviously, for Parliament to discuss issues it feels need to be discussed. And it is imperative that in a free and open democracy that those proceedings can be reported upon. We'll see what the court views this morning, obviously, but certainly it is a cornerstone of our democratic system that members of Parliament can discuss what they need to be what they feel needs to be discussed, and that you and the media can report on those proceedings.
Yes, but no rights are absolute, you could say, although I think there is an indication in Article 15 of the Constitution that there is absolute privilege. What about Denis O'Brien's rights? Does he not have a right to confidentiality, as he writes in today's Irish Times, in regard to his banking arrangements?
To a point, we all have that right. Obviously we do. We all have a right to privacy. But we don't have an absolute right to privacy. During the Moriarty Tribunal, Michael Lowry's banking arrangements were gone through in detail. Bertie Ahern's banking arrangements were gone through in detail because they pertained to an issue of serious public importance. So it is not an absolute right. It is a right to be handled very, very carefully, but by no means is that an absolute right.
And what about the fact, though, that there is the possibility, and he is arguing this very strongly, that false information has been put on the record of the Dáil? What is his comeback?
Well, his comeback, I guess, is what he's doing right now. Look, if false information was put on the record of the Dáil, which I'm sure it is from time to time unintentionally, those issues are dealt with by the Oireachtas. Certainly, I don't believe there is any effort to distort those things. And I read Mr. O'Brien's article this morning in the Irish Times, and I was quite taken aback by it, because I'm not aware of any attack on the character of Denis O'Brien by Catherine Murphy, or by anybody else, by the way. But his piece includes what I believe to be quite a vicious attack on her. He says she has used the files to attempt to damage him and to gain notoriety and political advantage. He references Deputy Murphy's desire to distort the bank details. These are extraordinary claims. It's important for people to understand this, Sean. I was in the chamber when Deputy Murphy made the speech introducing her bill. Denis O'Brien is not the point. Denis O'Brien is largely irrelevant to all this. He happens to own a company, Siteserv, that the department officials raised very serious concerns. So why are we having this conversation at all? We're having the conversation because when Catherine Murphy sought information from the Minister for Finance as to whether or not he was concerned with the Siteserv deal, he didn't disclose the very serious concerns that his officials raised. She then, over a year, pursued that information under freedom of information. She finally got it, and the information is so serious, the concerns are so serious, that the government has launched an investigation into them. Unfortunately, and this was the point of Catherine Murphy's speech, and I know we can't talk about the details of the speech, but the focus of the speech was not Denis O'Brien. The focus of the speech was to illustrate why it is utterly unacceptable for the government to appoint KPMG to investigate itself. That's the point.
But are they investigating? Are they investigating KPMG itself, or are they not just investigating events and matters which happened before the I'm saying liquidation. I mean the liquidation of IBRC.
Well, the full answer to that question, Sean, is contained in Catherine Murphy's speech, which we're not allowed to talk about. KPMG was one of the companies that was involved in transacting the Siteserv sale. That sale and that transaction is now being investigated by Kieran Wallace, who works for KPMG. So KPMG is investigating itself. However, the conflict of interest is more serious and deeper than that. We're not allowed to talk about it because of this injunction, but that was the point of Catherine Murphy's speech. Let's remember, she was introducing a bill to extend the rights of the Comptroller and Auditor General's office to do this investigation instead of KPMG because of details of a conflict of interest, which she stated in the Dáil, on the very clear understanding that she was acting in the public interest, which I believe she was.
But there's also the fact that Michael Noonan and the government have taken those concerns very much into account by introducing the role for the retired High Court Judge Iarla O'Neill, and his job is to check this whole process out for any potential conflicts of interest.
Sean, if you had been accused of something, imagine the director of RTE saying, "Here, Sean, why don't you investigate actions that are under investigation, and we'll have someone else watch you to make sure that there's no conflict of interest." It would be a preposterous thing. No one would ever suggest that.
Are you not vastly oversimplifying the thing, to put it in those terms? Are you not oversimplifying it vastly?
No, that's exactly what's happening. The deal at the centre of this is the Siteserv deal. We know now through Catherine Murphy's diligent work that the department raised very serious concerns. They listed several concerns about the Siteserv deal, and they said, "Oh, and by the way, we have very serious concerns about a number of other large transactions." So the Siteserv deal is at the centre of the investigation. KPMG ran the Siteserv deal. KPMG are being asked to investigate the Siteserv deal. So KPMG is being asked to investigate its own transactions.
Well, there's more to it. There's more to it than Siteserv, because I think the terms of reference cover all transactions, activities and management decisions other than those relating solely to the acquisition of assets by NAMA between the nationalisation of the then Anglo and the liquidation, I should say, of IBRC in 2013, which led to a loss of €10 million or more. But again, I come back to the role of the former retired High Court Judge, Justice Iarla O'Neill. Surely he is in a position to call out anything that he considers to be wrong, or to bring in other experts in regard to anything involving KPMG.
He is, Sean, but the public and Parliament must be satisfied that the findings are absolutely above board. Now, KPMG is not the only company that is capable of investigating financial transactions. In fact, its own global corporate governance says that it shouldn't be involved in this particular way. So, on the basis that there are any number of individuals or companies out there who can investigate these transactions, why do we have a company that ran the process at the centre of these transactions investigating the transactions? I mean, who is going to have faith in that? I certainly won't have any faith in anything that comes out, regardless of the best efforts of the judge. Why don't we have an independent person or company come in and investigate the transactions? And that is what is at the centre of this, not Dennis O'Brien.
Stay with us, if you will, please. I want to go to Dr. Owen O'Dell, Associate Professor of Law at Trinity College Dublin. What is likely to happen today, Owen O'Dell?
Good morning. Before I answer that, could I pick up a question that you asked Stephen there? You said, what happens if somebody puts a statement on the Dáil record that turns out to be untrue? Well, there's a simple answer to that, which is Standing Order 59 of the Dáil, which allows somebody to make a complaint to the County Corla to refer to the Committee on Privileges, who can then make a finding that the matter, that the statement was untrue, and put that correction on the Dáil record. And that happened in the context of the Mary Lou MacDonald and Backer 6 allegations earlier this year. So Dennis O'Brien, I think, if he is clear in his mind that his that the statement that Catherine Murphy made on Thursday was inaccurate, that is his route, which is to say make a complaint to the Count Corla for a decision by the Committee on Privileges, and I think that looking at his paper, his article in the paper this morning, he's heading down that road. Now, what's likely to happen this morning? Well, there are two different kinds of applications being made this morning. One is the RTE application. RTE, as you better than anybody else will know, is the named defendant in the existing privacy action, and therefore it can make an application in that existing action for an order from the judge that republishing the statement made by Catherine Murphy last Thursday in the Dáil does not breach the terms of the injunction, or to vary the terms of the injunction so that the statement can be published by RTE. And that is the simplest but also the most important application being made this morning. Then, as you said, a whole range of other newspapers and media outlets are also making applications that they will be able to rely on the constitutional privilege to publish, notwithstanding the terms of the injunction. And that's a harder application to make because they're not parties to an existing case, so they're putting their hands up and saying, please, sir, can we do something without being punished? And the courts don't usually entertain those kinds of hypotheticals. So it will be interesting to see what basis they are making that application on. I think much the more interesting and much more likely for an outcome is the RTE application.
Yes, but it's not just RTE, as you say, Owen. The injunction applies to RTE and other parties who have notice of it. Now, explain that term, who have notice of it. Is it just anybody who happens to know about it?
In principle, yes, and it is usually expressed in those terms. This injunction, will have been sought against RTE, and then the usual formula would be as against the named defendant, and quote, all other parties having notice. And basically, anybody who is aware of it is bound by it. But that is a general principle of law. So even if it hadn't been stated on the face of the injunction, anybody aware of it would have been bound by it. The wrinkle here is that we still don't know the terms of the injunction, because until the May 21st judgment is redacted and published, and that was intended to be at the end of next week, the full terms of the order and the full terms of the injunction and the full terms of the judgment won't be known. So we have notice of the fact of an injunction, but we don't have notice of the terms of the injunction yet. So that's one of the reasons why the other media outlets making their application are, if you like, firing in the dark because they don't know the actual terms of the injunction. And moreover, their claim is different from what the injunction is directed at anyway.
And what about... Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, so whilst the RTE case has a sound basis, just simply from the point of view of standing, it'll be interesting to see how the other news media outlets, in fact, can have standing in these circumstances.
Well, aside from the question of their standing or otherwise, Owen, what about the right to publish what is said in the Dáil?
Oh, yeah. I have to say that a lot of the media outlets over the course of the weekend have tried to say that this is a constitutional crisis. I don't think that it is. I mean, it's a nice drama, certainly, but I don't think it's a constitutional crisis. The Constitution is clear. Catherine Murphy is entitled to say what she said. If it turns out to be false, then the Committee on Privileges in the Dáil can say so. But that's it. No court can rule on what she has said. Moreover, it is privileged not just in the Dáil when she says it, but elsewhere, wherever published. And so if somebody else had repeated what she had said, they would be entitled to the benefit of the privilege too. And so Broadsheet and Village Magazine and Sunday Times and the University Times and Trinity, which have all published the full text of Catherine's statement from last Thursday, I think are on absolutely firm constitutional ground to say that they have this constitutional privilege and that they're entitled to publish what they have published.
Well, that would suggest that one possibility that would lead to a constitutional crisis would be if the court were to rule that, in fact, what was said last week in the Dáil by Catherine Murphy could not be published because of the injunction.
Well, I would think it very, very unlikely that the court would say that. Courts are there to interpret the Constitution. Courts are bound by the Constitution. And if the court finds that there is a statement made with Dáil privilege republished, then that will get constitutional privilege, and no court order can go against that. Short of Counsel for Dennis O'Brien finding a different basis to say that it wasn't actually caught by the Dáil privilege in the first place. But if a court finds that the statement is covered by privilege, that will be it. We would have a crisis if the court had said that on the 21st of May, but Mr. Justice Binchy didn't say that. We will have a crisis if he says that later on today, but I very much doubt that he will say that. In fact, I am absolutely certain that he won't say that.
Well,
we have had a drama, but we have not yet had a crisis, and I doubt we're going to have one.
It looks then, if O'Nadell is right, Stephen Donnelly, finally, that it will be a case of publish and be damned. What will happen if that is the outcome?
Well, what I hope happens if that is the outcome is that the government sees sense, asks KPMG to step back from the investigation, because we have Alan Duke saying the information is not correct. We have Dennis O'Brien, spokesperson, saying maybe it was altered, or asserting it was altered. This is the whole point of the investigation. We need an investigation into the concerns raised by the department officials. So my hope, a successful outcome for the public, would be that the judge rules, as Owen has just said, that the government sees sense and asks KPMG to step back, or indeed KPMG sees sense and steps back themselves, that we appoint someone who is completely independent and has the requisite expertise to fully and quickly investigate these transactions, to discover if there was anything odd going on, and there may have been absolutely nothing odd going on, but we need to know quickly, and we need to have faith in the findings. So that, to me, would be the best outcome for the public. And of course, as Owen has said, Parliament must be and is free to discuss what it wishes, and the media must be free and is free to report on those discussions.
We await developments, and in fact we'll be keeping a close eye on what, if anything, happens in the High Court before the end of the programme. We leave it there for now. Stephen Donnelly, Independent TD for Wicklow and East Carlow, and also Dr. O'Nadell, Associate Professor of Law at Trinity College. Thank you both for joining us.
Today with Sean O Rourke.